Hello. Welcome to the Learn English Lab. Today's podcast is IELTS Speaking topic, social media.
It's great to be here. And, this is one of those topics that it feels so simple on the surface, but it can actually be a bit of a minefield for test takers.
A minefield? Really? That seems a little dramatic. I mean, we're talking about looking at cat photos and seeing what your friends are up to, right? Surely this is the easiest topic they could give you.
And that's exactly the trap.
How so?
Because it's so familiar, students get a bit complacent. They think, oh, this is easy. I talk about TikTok with my friends all the time.
Right.
But the IELTS exam, it isn't a chat with your friends.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very structured assessment of your language skills.
Yeah.
And when a topic is this common, the examiner's expectation for your vocabulary and your structure, it actually goes up.
I think I see what you're getting at. So because the idea is simple, the language needs to be sophisticated to impress them.
Spot on. It's the ultimate crossover topic. Just think about how universal it is. It doesn't matter where you are in the world. A student in Vietnam, a professional in India, a teacher in Brazil.
Everyone's on it. Everyone has some kind of relationship with it.
Exactly. It's the great equalizer in the exam room.
Which is a relief, I have to say. I mean, can you imagine sitting down, your heart is pounding, you're nervous, and the examiner asks you about, 17th century mirror manufacturing?
It would be a total nightmare. You'd be scrambling just for ideas, never mind the words. But social media, everyone has an opinion. You might love it, you might hate it.
You might be completely addicted to it.
But you definitely have thoughts.
Okay, but here's a worry I've heard from students. Let's say I'm taking the test, and I have a really strong opinion. I genuinely think social media is, a disaster for society.
Mm-hmm.
If I go in there and just start ranting about how awful Instagram is the examiner going to penalize me for being too negative?
This is probably the number one misconception. Students really worry that the examiner is judging their opinion.
Yeah, that they'll think, oh, this person spends 5 hours a day on TikTok. They must be lazy. Or this person hates technology. They're old-fashioned.
We have to just completely dismantle that idea right now.
Yeah.
The examiner does not care. They don't care about your lifestyle, your morals, your screen time.
It's not a character test.
It is not a character test. They're only judging 4 things: fluency, vocabulary, grammar, and pronunciation.
Mm-hmm.
Social media is just the vehicle. It's the lens they're using to look at those skills. You could be the world's biggest social media critic, and if you express that view with, beautiful, complex sentences and high-level vocabulary, you'll get a band 9.
Okay, that is a huge weight off my shoulders, and probably for a lot of people listening. So our mission for this deep dive is to forget the actual debate about whether it's good or bad, and focus entirely on how to use this topic to get the highest score possible.
Precisely. We're going to break down all 3 parts of the speaking test, using social media as our guide. We'll get into the vocabulary, the structures, and all the little strategies that can push your score up.
Perfect. Let's start right at the beginning then. Part 1, the warm-up.
Or the interview phase, as it's sometimes called.
I always feel this part is a bit deceptive. It feels like small talk, Do you work or are you a student? Do you use social media? It can feel like the examiner is just trying to be polite before the real test begins.
And you cannot be fooled by that. The test is started the second you walk through that door. The goal for part 1 is simple, but it's tricky. Sound natural. The questions are short, they're about you, and your answers should be about, say, 2 to 4 sentences long.
Okay, so not a monologue, but definitely not just one word.
That's the biggest mistake. The closed door answer. The examiner asks, do you use social media? And the candidate just says, yes.
And then just silence. Awkward silence.
It's painful. The examiner is just sitting there waiting for you to give them something to work with to show off your English.
Yeah.
You have to open the door for them. You have to expand on your answer.
All right, let's game this out a bit. Let's imagine 2 different people taking the test. Scenario A, we'll call them the enthusiast. This is the person who is never far from their phone.
Mm-hmm.
How does that person answer, do you use social media, without just sounding really basic?
So the enthusiast needs to avoid phrases like, I love it, or I use it every day. I mean, they're fine, but they're not going to impress anyone. They're sort of band 5 or 6.
So what's a better version?
A great model answer might sound something like this. Yes, absolutely. I use social media on a daily basis. My go-to platform is probably Instagram, mainly for keeping up with friends, but I also spend a fair bit of time on YouTube for, learning new things.
Okay, let's pause on a couple of things there. On a daily basis, it means the same as every day, right? So why is it better?
It's a common collocation, and it just sounds a little more formal, a little more structured. It shows, these set phrases. And go-to platform is even better.
Yeah, I use go-to for everything. My go-to coffee shop, my go-to pair of jeans.
Exactly. It means your default choice, your favorite. And using it as an adjective like that is a very natural, native-like construction. It's a topic-specific vocabulary.
Love it. Okay, now for the other side of the coin. Scenario B, the skeptic. This is the person who dreams of throwing their smartphone into a river. How do they answer honestly without coming across as grumpy or rude?
Remember, you can dislike the topic, but your language has to be polite and articulate. So you don't say, no, it's terrible.
Right.
A much better answer for the skeptic would be something like, to be honest, I'm not a huge fan. I do have a Facebook account to stay in touch with family, but I rarely check it. I much prefer spending my free time reading or going for a walk, because I find screens can be quite distracting.
To be honest, that's a great little phrase to start with.
It's a discourse marker. It signals to the listener that you're about to give a genuine opinion, maybe one that goes against what's expected. It's a really good way to frame your answer.
And saying, I'm not a huge fan, that feels very polite, very understated.
It is. It shows you can express a negative opinion with a bit of sophistication, rather than using really strong emotional words like hate or despise. It's more controlled.
So we've covered whether we use it or not. The next logical question from the examiner is probably about routine, right? Like, how much time do you spend on social media?
And this is where we can really start to show off. We can get into what I call the addiction angle. And honestly, this is a goldmine for good vocabulary.
Because pretty much everyone feels a little bit guilty about how much time they spend scrolling.
And you can use that guilt.
Yeah.
Admitting you spend a bit too much time on it lets you use some fantastic phrasal verbs. You can start with on average to give an estimate. But then you can get specific. You can say, I probably spend 2 hours a day just scrolling through my feed.
Scrolling through. That's the key verb, isn't it? You don't look at Instagram or read Facebook.
You scroll. Using that specific verb with through shows, the exact lexicon associated with this technology. It paints a very clear picture.
And what if you want to take it up another level?
You talk about the struggle. You could say something like, I'm aware it's probably not very healthy, so I've been trying to cut down recently. I've even set a screen time limit on my phone.
Cut down. A classic phrasal verb.
A perfect phrasal verb. Native speakers use them all the time, saying, I want to reduce my consumption sounds. A bit like a textbook.
Stiff.
Very stiff. I'm trying to cut down. Is so much more natural. And screen time limit is a very contemporary phrase. It shows you're up to date.
There's also that feeling of time just vanishing. How could you describe that?
There's a brilliant idiom for this. You can say, I'll just open the app to check one quick thing, and before I know it, an hour has completely disappeared.
Before I know it. That perfectly captures that mindless, hypnotic state of scrolling, doesn't it?
It really does. It conveys that slight loss of control, which is very relatable.
Okay, one more question type for part 1. And you said this one is a bit of a trap. The evolution question. Did you use social media when you were younger?
I call it a trap because it's secretly a grammar test.
Right.
The examiner's checking if you can switch tenses smoothly. You've been talking in the present tense. I use, I spend, I think. Now they want to see if you can pivot instantly to the past.
So if I just keep talking in the present tense, I'm kind of failing that hidden test.
You're not directly answering the question they asked. You need to show that contrast between past and present. Use phrases like, I was really into, or we used to share everything on.
Can you give me a model answer for that?
Sure. A high-scoring answer would be, oh, definitely. When I was a teenager, I was really into Facebook. We used to post all our photos and statuses there. But these days, I've pretty much moved on to Instagram as it feels more visual and, immediate.
That contrast is so clear. I was really into versus I've moved on.
It shows you have complete control over the timeline in your story. And as a bonus, it shows a little bit of insight. The insight that social media trends change very, very quickly. Examiners love that.
Okay, so that's the warm-up. We've navigated the interview. We're feeling a bit more comfortable. And now we step into the danger zone.
Part 2.
The long turn. The famous cue card. You get 1 minute to prepare, and then you have to speak for 2 minutes straight.
Shut up on any interruptions.
That 2 minutes can feel like an absolute eternity if you run out of things to say. This is where I think most people really start to panic. They describe the app for 30 seconds. It has a blue icon. You can post pictures, and then they just freeze up.
And the key to avoiding that freeze is flow. You have to tell a story. You cannot just list a series of facts. You need a little narrative, with a beginning, a middle, and an end.
So we've got 3 really good case studies to look at for this part, 3 different ways you could tackle a social media cue card. Let's start with case study 1, the travel envy answer.
This would be a great response for a prompt like, describe something interesting you saw on social media.
Okay, so in this example, the student talks about seeing a travel video. Let's say it's of the Swiss Alps.
Right. And notice the huge difference in language. A band 6 answer would be something like, I saw a video of Switzerland. The mountains were big. It was very beautiful.
Grammatically okay, but so boring.
Completely flat. A band 8 speaker, on the other hand, uses vivid visual vocabulary. They would say something like, I was just scrolling through my feed one evening when I came across this incredible video of Lauterbrunnen in Switzerland. It was just breathtaking, with these towering cliffs, lush green valleys, and waterfalls cascading down the rock face.
Cascading. Now that is a beautiful word.
It's so specific. It paints a picture of water falling in stages. And towering gives a sense of majesty, not just big.
But even a great description like that probably won't fill the whole 2 minutes, will it?
No, it won't. And this is where you need what we call the so what factor. You must explain why this video mattered to you.
The personal connection.
Exactly. So in this case study, the speaker links the video to a personal realization. They might say, I had always assumed a trip to Switzerland was way too expensive, but this video made me realize it was possible without breaking the bank.
Breaking the bank. Nice idiom there.
And that's the perfect ending. It connects a pretty video to a real-life action, maybe they started saving money, and a change in their perspectives. The story moves from I saw a thing to I learned a thing. That's a complete narrative.
Okay, that makes sense. Let's move to case study 2. This is a different angle. For a prompt like, describe a website or app you use often. The favorite platform answer.
The main trap here is to sound like you just use it to waste time. If you say, I watch YouTube for 3 hours every day because I'm bored, it's, well, it's honest, but it's hard to showcase complex language.
So you need to frame it in a more positive light.
You want to position the platform as a tool. So in this model answer, the speaker argues that YouTube is actually a tool for their self-improvement.
Right, they don't just say, I watch funny videos. They get specific about the channels.
They might mention a channel like Crash Course for learning history, or Joshua Weissman for learning how to cook. Giving specific names makes it sound much more authentic. And more importantly, it lets them use phrases like, it's become integral to my daily routine, and first and foremost, I use it for education.
It sounds like they're building a structured argument.
It is, but the part of this answer I really love is when they bring up the community aspect. The speaker talks about reading the comment section.
Which is usually a terrible idea on the internet.
Usually, yes. But for your IELTS answer, it's a fantastic point to make. The speaker could say, it makes me feel like I'm part of a global community that caters specifically to my interests.
Caters specifically to. That's a really high-level phrasal verb. It means something like, it's designed perfectly for.
That's it. It shows you understand how algorithms work. They give you more of what you like without needing to explain the technical side of it.
Brilliant. Okay, let's look at our third case study. This one is for a very common prompt. Describe a person you follow on social media.
The influencer question. And again, the key is to avoid a shallow answer.
Yeah.
Please don't just say, I follow this actress because she is very beautiful.
We need to go deeper. We need substance.
We need substance. Our model answer here focuses on someone like Ali Abdaal, who's a former doctor that became a productivity expert on YouTube.
And why is that a good choice for an answer?
Because it immediately shifts the focus from appearance to intellect. The speaker isn't talking about looks. They're explaining the value this person provides. They might say, he has this amazing ability to explain complex ideas in a very relatable way.
Relatable is such a key word for social media, isn't it?
It's perfect. And this is the part that could really push your score up. I'd use an analogy. They mentioned that this influencer compares the human brain's short-term memory to a computer's RAM.
To RAM, random access memory.
Right. Now just stop and think about what you're demonstrating to the examiner there. You are sitting in a language exam describing a person who is using a metaphor from computing to explain a concept from psychology.
That is, wow, that is multiple layers of abstract thought.
It's incredibly impressive. It proves you can handle complex comparisons and ideas. You're not just describing a photo on a screen, you're explaining a concept.
And of course, you can sprinkle in some great personality adjectives like down-to-earth or genuine.
Oh, absolutely. Having a good bank of words to describe personality is crucial for so many IELTS topics.
So to quickly recap part 2, Whether it's a place, a platform, or a person, you need vivid details, specific vocabulary, and a clear story about why it matters to you.
That's the formula. It's not just about describing the thing, it's about describing your relationship with the thing.
Okay, take a deep breath. We've made it through the 2-minute monologue, and now we head into the final and perhaps most challenging part 3, the deep dive.
The mini debate.
The whole tone and feel of the test shifts here, doesn't it?
Oh, massively. In parts 1 and 2, everything was personal. What do? Describe a time you saw something. But in part 3, you have to zoom out. You're talking about society, about the world, about the future. You need to be analytical.
But we have a secret weapon for this part, don't we? The Peel method.
The Peel method is your absolute best friend in part 3. It's a structure that prevents you from rambling. It stands for point, explain, example, link.
Let's break that down, because a good structure here is everything.
So, point. You state your main idea clearly and directly. Explain. You elaborate on that point, giving the why. Example. You provide a specific, concrete illustration. And finally, link. You briefly connect your answer back to the original question. If you can follow that, your answers will be incredibly clear and logical.
Okay, let's try it. I'll be the examiner. Topic 1 is advantages. So, what do you see as the main benefits of social media for society as a whole?
All right, applying Peel. My point. I'd say the single biggest benefit is the way it has completely revolutionized long-distance communication. Explain. It essentially bridges geographical gaps, allowing people to maintain close relationships no matter where they are in the world. Example. For instance, my aunt lives in Canada, and I can video call her on WhatsApp for free, and it feels like she's in the room with me. Link. So in that way, it helps maintain crucial social bonds that would have been much harder to keep in the past.
That is so clean, it's tight, it's logical, and it's impossible to get lost listening to that.
It just creates a flow that is so easy for the examiner to follow and award marks for.
What are some other big advantages we could talk about?
A really good one is the democratization of information.
That sounds like a very high-level phrase. What does it actually mean?
It just means that knowledge is now accessible to everyone, not just an elite few who can afford it. You can talk about how YouTube allows a teenager in a small village to learn university-level physics or coding or a new language, all for free. The traditional gatekeepers of knowledge have been removed.
And the economic benefits, too.
For sure. The creation of entirely new careers, content creators, social media managers. And it's a huge help for small businesses that can now advertise to a specific audience for a very low cost. So you've got 3 strong pillars: connection, education, and economics.
You know the examiner's going to flip the coin. They'll definitely ask about the dark side. So, topic 2, disadvantages.
And honestly, the dark side is often easier to talk about because the vocabulary is so specific and interesting. The first one, and the most obvious, is mental health.
And the key phrase here is comparison culture.
That's the one you want to use.
Yeah.
You can explain that we are constantly comparing our ordinary behind-the-scenes lives with everyone else's curated highlight reel.
Highlight reel is a fantastic metaphor for that.
It perfectly captures the problem, and it's linked to rising rates of anxiety and depression. But you can go deeper. You can talk about the infodemic.
Infodemic, like an information epidemic.
Exactly. The rapid and widespread circulation of fake news and misinformation. You could use a health crisis or a political election as an example. It shows you're engaged with current world events.
And then there's the big, slightly creepy issue of privacy.
Yeah. If you can remember it, dropping in a specific example like the Cambridge Analytica scandal shows real knowledge. You can talk about data collection and use that great phrase. If the product is free, then you are the product.
And the final disadvantage is the design itself. I mean, it's not an accident that these apps are so hard to put down.
Not at all.
Yep.
They're engineered for addiction. You can use terms like the dopamine hit we get from a like or the infinite scroll feature. These are all driven by algorithms designed to maximize your time on the app. Using words like algorithm and engagement shows you understand the business behind it.
Okay, let's look to the future. Topic 3. How do you think social media might change in the next 10 years?
Speculating like this is a great chance to show off your future tenses and modal verbs, words like might, could, will, likely. A huge trend to talk about is AI integration.
You mean like having an AI assistant write your Instagram captions for you?
Exactly that. Or automatically editing your photos to perfection. But beyond that, you've got the whole metaverse and VR idea, moving from flat 2D screens to immersive 3D social spaces.
Immersive is a great word to use there.
And it sounds futuristic, but don't forget The more boring stuff regulation.
Right, governments getting involved.
Yes. Mentioning things like EU laws on data privacy might sound dry, but it makes you sound incredibly mature and well-informed.
And what about how users might change?
Well, there's this idea of a counter-movement, a kind of digital fatigue, where people get tired of broadcasting their entire lives and start moving back towards smaller, more private online groups.
A digital retreat. I like that idea. Okay, our final big topic for part 3. Children. This is always a controversial one. Should children be allowed on social media?
The key word for this question is nuance. A simple yes or no is not a good answer. No, ban it all is too simplistic. You need to show you can see both sides.
So you need to distinguish between different types of use.
Exactly. You draw a clear line between, say, a 12-year-old mindlessly scrolling through TikTok for hours and a student using a supervised YouTube account to watch educational videos for their homework.
So it's about active management, not just a blanket ban.
Precisely. And if you want a really killer point to make to impress the examiner, you can mention the irony that many top Silicon Valley executives, the very people who create these platforms, severely limit their own children's screen time.
That is a fantastic point. It really shows you're thinking critically.
It shows you're looking beneath the surface of the issue.
We have covered so much ground. I think we need to pause and open up the vocabulary and idiom treasure chest. We've mentioned a few, but let's just run through some must-haves for this topic.
Idioms are like the spice in your cooking. You don't want to use too many, but a few, used correctly, can make your answer so much better.
Okay, first one up, a double-edged sword.
A classic. Perfect for this topic. It just means something has clear pros and cons. Social media is a double-edged sword. It connects us, but it also creates anxiety.
Next, jump on the bandwagon.
To follow a trend just because it's popular. It seems like every company is trying to jump on the TikTok bandwagon at the moment.
Take it with a pinch of salt.
This is absolutely essential for talking about social media. It means you shouldn't believe everything you see or read completely. You have to take those perfect life posts on Instagram with a pinch of salt.
The tip of the iceberg.
This means that what you can see is only a small part of a much bigger problem. The fake news we see on our feeds is just the tip of the iceberg.
And an older one that fits perfectly. Keep up with the Joneses.
It's the idea of constantly comparing yourself to your neighbors and wanting to have what they have. I think social media has put the pressure to keep up with the Joneses on a global scale.
And a few quick, high-level terms. Echo chamber.
When an algorithm only shows you opinions and news that you already agree with, so your own biases are reinforced.
Digital detox.
Taking a deliberate break from all your devices for your mental well-being.
And FOMO.
Fear of missing out. It's an acronym, but it's so common now that you can just use it as a word.
These are like little keys that unlock the higher level bans, aren't they? They show you're not just fluent in the language, but in the culture around the topic too.
Cultural fluency. That's a perfect way to describe it.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about what to say. Let's shift to some advanced strategies for how to say it. How do you manage the pressure in the moment?
I think one of the most effective but underused tips for a band 7 or higher is what I call the 2-second rule.
And that is?
It's simple. Don't be afraid to pause. When the examiner asks you a really tough Part 3 question, like, will AI eventually replace all human interaction? Well, you don't need to fire back an answer and have a second.
But the silence feels so scary. It feels like you don't know what to say.
It feels scary to you. But to the examiner, a short, controlled pause looks like confidence. It looks like you're actually considering the question. So you take 2 seconds. You take a breath. And you use a thinking phrase.
What's a thinking phrase?
Something like, wow, that's a really interesting question. Or, I haven't really thought about that before, but I suppose.
It just buys you a few extra seconds to structure your thoughts and grab the right grammar.
It does. And it sounds far more authentic. Real conversations have pauses. Only robots speak without them.
What about handling a really strong or controversial opinion?
You should absolutely state your opinion, but the high-level skill is to also acknowledge the other side. This is called making a concession. You might say, personally, I find social media to be quite negative. However, I have to acknowledge that it has given a powerful voice to many marginalized groups.
That, however, is the magic word, isn't it? It shows you're not just ranting, you're reasoning, you're weighing things up.
And probably the most important strategy of all, don't memorize, internalize.
Okay, what's the difference between the two?
Memorizing is learning a complete script, word for word. It's incredibly risky because if you forget one word, the whole thing can fall apart and you freeze. Internalizing is about learning the ideas and the key vocabulary chunks. So you know the story about the Swiss Alps, and you know you want to use the words cascading and breathtaking, but you build the actual sentences yourself, live, in the exam.
It's like being a jazz musician. You know the chords and the scale, but the solo is improvised every time.
That is the perfect analogy. You want to be a jazz musician in your IELTS test, not someone reading sheet music.
I love that. Okay, let's try to bring every single thing we've discussed together. We're going to do a mock test simulation, walking through a part 2 answer that could incorporate all these elements. This is the digital detox story.
And this is such a versatile story. It could answer prompts like, describe a healthy habit you have, or describe a time you changed your routine, or even describe a problem you successfully solved.
Great. So set the scene. Talk us through the narrative arc of this story.
Okay, so the story has to start with the problem. You establish the conflict. So the speaker would say, a few months ago, I realized I was spending 4 or 5 hours a day just mindlessly scrolling. I felt drained, unfocused, and a bit anxious.
You're setting the stakes, highlighting the negative feeling.
Then comes the action. So I decided to do something quite radical. I deleted all the social media apps from my phone for 2 weeks.
And then you get into the withdrawal. This is where the interesting details are.
Yes, the struggle. This makes it feel real. The first few days were surprisingly hard. I'd find myself instinctively reaching for my phone in my pocket. I even felt phantom vibrations.
And then after the struggle, we get to the result.
But after a while, I started to notice huge changes. My sleep improved dramatically. I started reading books again. And most importantly, I felt like I was actually being present with my friends and family. Using a phrase like being present shows that mindfulness vocabulary.
And every good story needs a moral at the end. The lesson.
After the 2 weeks were up, I did reinstall a couple of the apps, but now with strict boundaries. The whole experience was incredibly liberating, and it taught me how to use the tool rather than letting the tool use me.
Liberating, eye-opening, great emotional vocabulary.
That story just ticks all the boxes. It has a clear narrative structure. It uses a range of past tenses perfectly. It expresses emotion, and it shows that you have reflected critically on the topic. If you can tell a story like that in part 2, you're in a fantastic position.
It really does pull everything together. It's personal, but it's also analytical.
And notice, it's not about being a technology expert. It's about a very human experience.
So after all this, what's the final takeaway for someone listening to this, getting ready for their test?
It's that social media is just a tool. In life, it's a tool for communication or entertainment. In the IELTS exam, it's a tool for you to showcase your English ability. It's not inherently good or bad. It's just material for you to work with.
And how you talk about that material is everything.
Practice. Talk to yourself in the mirror. Record your own voice on your phone answering these questions and listen back to it. Did you use the peel structure? Did you use an idiom correctly? Did you remember to pause? That's how you build real confidence, through active preparation, not passive memorization.
And hey, if you feel brave, you could even record yourself answering a question and post it on social media.
I love that. A perfectly meta twist. Use the platform to practice for the exam about the platform.
Well, this has been an incredibly thorough breakdown. We have gone from the simplest part 1 questions to these big, complex debates about AI, society, and our own brains.
We really have. I hope it gives everyone out there a really clear roadmap for how to approach this topic with confidence.
Before we go, I'll leave you with a little provocative thought to mull over. We talked about the future and AI. Imagine a future where the IELTS examiner isn't a person, but a highly advanced AI. How would that change the way you talk about the very human topic of social media? Just something to think about.
Wow. That's a scary thought. I think I definitely need a digital detox after an exam like that.
Me too. Anyway, thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive.
It was my pleasure.
Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to this YouTube channel. Good luck with all your preparation, and go and ace that test.
You can do it. Goodbye, everyone.